and you have brought guests today. Mr. LaHood. You brought the other Mr. LaHood.
There's just the real LaHood isn't
the real LaHood.
Mark LaHood.
Hey, if you are just brand new to listening to Sidebar, please welcome the former Bexar County DA Nico LaHood, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Law Group, and George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, and pharmaceutical researcher and director. Thank you so much for listening, and please know that you can join us during the show and even after the show by going to sidebartv.com, where you can find a platform that we broadcast live, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. Also, please, please, please consider becoming a supporter of the show, because we need your help to stick with this and live the good life. Hey, so, Mark LaHood.
I don't know what good life you're talking about.
The life that is not the one in the direction that we are going.
Oh, you mean the good life in our society? Yeah, we're just trying to get people to think. Yeah, so go ahead. Good, you're talking. Mark's in studio with us. Well, Mark's in studio with us. Mark LaHood, my brother. I talk about him every week. You know, we had offered Steve Allison the opportunity to come on the show. Saulo made a video. We put it out there. I don't know if Mark's campaign reached out to him. We said we'd do a discussion, because, you know, debates or whatever they are, I think they should be done differently. But so Mark took us up on it. He was going to come last week, but then he was block walking and working polls, and he's going to block walk after this. He's serious about wanting to serve the people of Texas, and so I guess we can talk about it's a couple of things you want to talk about. I know, Karen, you had some questions. People ask me all the time about Steve Allison's attacks on Mark.
I know. I had steam coming out of the top of my head when I heard the commercial. I was like, there were a couple of things that were in the commercial, and I don't want to harp on him, but I was like, how does he know who you voted for on president? Was he next to you? And there were just a lot of negative things.
I have thick skin. I've been doing this for a while, obviously. Our mom doesn't. You know, Mom, she went to Harlandale. She wants to shank everybody. I mean, you know, she doesn't.
But I wanted to shake somebody when I heard that commercial.
She's Mama Bear, so I get it, you know. But I have thick skin. Mark definitely has thick skin. He's acquired that over time from running both times. But
Mama LaHood wants to shank.
I get it, though. I mean, I get it.
You know how it goes.
If somebody was saying that about my kid, I would want to do the same. Yeah.
She definitely, that's where the fight comes from. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but you know, he's taking very disingenuous liberties. You know, Mark voted in the Democrat primary because his brother was running for DA, who ran at that time under that platform. He's going to support his brother. To say he supported and voted for Biden, I mean, you know, it's an assumption. He's assuming a lot of things like he does.
It's not an assumption. It's an actual lie. So I had the same, sorry to cut you off, but I had the same consulting firm when I ran for DA. And so we went over all the issues. They vetted me. They know how I believe, what my principles are, what I own, what I value, who I voted for, what I put out there. I mean, it's an outright lie. But, you know, it's like Nico always says, I mean, when you have nothing and you're desperate, you know, when you have no integrity and you're losing, you resort to lies to try and maintain power. It's just that.
But I have to say this, and I'm not trying to be negative.
Yeah, please. But it comes natural to you. Go ahead.
It is.
Go ahead.
I have to be the other side. Well, look who I work with, and then ask me about it.
Go ahead.
But when Nico lost, I was like, that doesn't make sense. I don't get it. How did Nico lose against that guy? and it broke my heart, because I lose hope in the world, and I know you're supposed to be optimistic and know things happen for a reason, but I was like, no, that doesn't happen. Then when Trump lost, I was like, okay, this does not, you know, I thought the good guy won sometimes. And what did you say? Are you kidding? The good guy didn't win at the biggest time. And so it's hard to swallow all of that information.
We have to deal with it, though. I mean, what are we going to do? We can either complain about it, or we have to regroup and do something else. I mean, so Mark, you know, he understands that. He's responded with it. Look, you know, Allison says a lot of things about Mark. He's the real conservative. Well, his voting record doesn't reflect that. And defend your voting record. Go to debates. Go to discussions. Why are you avoiding Republican gatherings? I mean, these are supposed to be your voters, your people. I mean, there's a reason why Governor Abbott, Ted Cruz, Ken Paxton, and Sid Miller, amongst others, have endorsed Mark. I mean, what does that say? I mean, are they rhinos too? Are they fake conservatives? Look at this, and being invited to this show, I mean, obviously listeners lean conservative. I hope non-conservatives listen to this show. I hope people that lean progressive or that are classical liberals or whomever, I hope everybody listens to this show. We just want to speak to people and talk truth and critically think through issues and take criticism, have discussion, listen to other ideas. I mean, I'm always open to if someone has the evidence and the truth on their side, I'll adjust my thoughts and my thinking. So I hope, but obviously, a lot of listeners lean conservative to listen to the show. I would think that Steve would want to come on here and defend himself and talk and go for voters and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't, and so I think that speaks volumes. And so, look, Mark's going to sprint to the finish line. He's going to go back and work today, but he's going to here to talk about not only just the campaign and the election and the experience and what really is the issues and what we're facing and what the governor's facing and how the governor needs help. The governor, whether you like Governor Abbott or not, just on this issue alone on the border, he needs help. I mean, the legislature and George and I have criticized, especially George, has criticized the legislature and quote-unquote conservatives and people that, I mean, it really shouldn't be conservatives. It should be everybody. Democrats used to be strong on this issue. We bring up President Clinton all the time on the show, how in 1995 he said that illegal immigration is the greatest threat to this country. Well, okay, is that a Democrat issue? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's an idea that needs to be addressed, and it's gotten worse than ever. So President Clinton was right in 1995. President Trump is right today. Whoever says it is right today, I don't care who it is, whether it comes from MSNBC, Fox, or wherever, whoever says that the border is an existential threat and is something that needs to be addressed, I mean, strongly, not tepidly. I know we're going to talk about Biden's visit versus Trump's. Is it going to be correct? And I'm going to support that, regardless of what tribe they're in. And so that's all. So I mean, the government needs help.
I do have one question for you, Mark, and
tear them up. I'll be quiet.
I don't even know if it's a question or just a statement, but with gosh, I can't remember her name, the nursing student that was just murdered.
Riley
Laken.
Yes.
Riley.
And 2 or 3 others that have been murdered by illegals. You're not hearing it in the news. It's not being covered. And so while here in this room we know how crucial the border is, I just wonder sometimes, are people blinded because they don't hear it on the news, network news or something? And how do you combat that? I guess you go out and you talk to people face to face, but how many people can you talk to face to face? And what have you been encountering when it comes to people's thoughts about the border?
So it's twofold. One, you're right. Mainstream media is going to bury the story because it's not convenient for their narrative, first and foremost. But secondly, the reality is, I've talked to about 1,000 doors or households, and that's a drop in the hat. Unfortunately, there's no easy answer. The reality is we all have to do it, right? Like I tell people I'm guilty as sin. I was always raised, you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion, it's not polite. And it's just inconvenient. And I sat back my entire adult life and said, that idea is so insane, surely no one's going to fall for it. But, Goebbels said it during World War II, before World War II, if you tell a lie big enough and you tell it often enough, people will believe it. And so the number one thing I can't urge enough, we need to empower us to stop being afraid to get canceled, to get the blowback. We have to speak up about these things first and foremost. But the other issue is this, is people understand that the border is an issue because it is an issue. I mean, it's no different than our house, right? We lock our front door when a stranger comes to our house. Who are you? Why are you here? What are your intentions? That's what the border, I believe, maybe I'm simple. I think the government is always an extension of the family. And so the border is our home. It's the walls of security. It's the one that keeps the threats out and keeps us safe within. And people want that. I mean, I've talked with people. I've gone down the Eagle Pass twice. I went down to Camado for the trucker rally, and then I went down to RGV during the DA race and walked a big portion of the border wall and the gaping holes in it.
RGV is Rio Grande Valley.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure the listeners know.
And on those trips, I only talked to maybe about 100, 150 people, mostly Democrat, I'm assuming, just by our conversations. And the only thing they care about is the safety of their family. That's it. It's not politics. I mean, I don't care what the topic is. If we take the headlines out and we just talk about the raw truths, like the principles of it, most people agree with it. And then when you start throwing out stuff the propaganda. Then they started going, oh, I've heard that. That's bad. But at the very basic thing, they want their families to be safe. They want the drugs to not come in. They want the cartels to not come in. They want to not get flooded by illegal, and it's an invasion of illegal aliens. I mean, on the low end, 9 million people, some estimates 15 to 20 million.
Yeah.
That's the population of, I think, like 7 or 8 or 10 states that are in this country. And then our federal government, the last I checked, they're giving them a little card saying, come back in 5, 6, 7 years for your hearing. It's insane.
Yeah. They're also giving them a little card with money.
That's
a lot of money.
That's very generous, Mark. Population about 40 states. When you get to those kinds of numbers, I mean, it really is breathtaking. I want to go to your website for a moment because I just want to put you on the spot a little bit because I think you bring up something that's the crux of the matter for me anyway. And I told Mark before we came in here, Nico, that I went back to 2015 to see what voters are complaining about in the state of Texas, particularly as it pertains to the legislature. And I'm suggesting to Mark that, and I know you're talking about Steve Allison. It's District 121. I understand that that's your opponent at this time. But I told Mark it's beyond Steve Allison. Steve Allison embodies a cultural problem inside the legislature. You and I have gone back and forth about this a lot. And I think you're wading into a cultural storm. And so I'm glad that Abbott and Cruz are behind you 100% because I think they're cut from the same cloth. You can't just have another conservative. You got to have somebody who is stubborn as hell. And I know you enough to. You're stubborn. Sometimes you're a pain in the ass, and that is a great quality. No, it really is. I mean that sincerely.
You have to have that.
Thank you. I think
I actually meant that as a compliment.
With all due respect,
you got to have somebody.
that
Mark,
fixes everything. With all due respect,
you can't just have somebody. I want people to listen to this. Mark LaHood is his stubbornness. What's the metaphor? You have the tenacity of a weed.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a great quality today. You don't just have the right principles, but you're stubborn as hell. We desperately need that to change the culture. It's not just enough to show up, but you got to change that culture. You got to have somebody who's brass tacks tough. I want to go to your website because you bring some of this up there.
Okay, we are going to take a break. But we're going to be right back, and you do not lose that place. And you don't go away because we have so much to talk about. More coming up next on Sidebar. So much for listening. Go to sidebartv.com where you can join us live visually, and we continue the show afterwards. Okay, George, you were talking about
the website. I actually read candidates' websites because I want to see what they're claiming to believe in, and then we go back and check these things called voting records. See if there's consistency. Try doing that with Steve Allison, by the way. You'll have all kinds of fun. You write this in your website. What happens at our border has real impacts on the lives and livelihoods of the residents of HD 121 and all of Bexar County, whether it's increased crime, dangerous drugs like fentanyl flooding our streets. Legitimate issue, by the way. That's an objective issue. Something like 109,000 opioid deaths last year, 80% of which were actually fentanyl related. Big issue. Or horrific human trafficking. The chaos on our border threatens people and property across Texas. And then you actually go a little deeper here. into the particulars. Last session, transformational state border legislation, House Bill 20, was killed on the floor of the Texas House by Democrats and their allies. This bill would have started a permanent border protection unit for continuous policing of the border, created a state felony offense for entering Texas by trespass, and enabled the state to deport illegal immigrants immediately on its own authority. And while HB 20 had 56 Republicans signed on as joint or co-authors, Our current state representative, Steve Allison, was not one of them. So you bring up Steve Allison again, got to get that guy out of office. But it is a cultural issue. He's an embodiment of a cultural problem in there. We've had an 86-64 split for a long time. We have a significant majority. And yet voters, I went back to 2015 just to read voter sentiment. The frustration with the legislature is palpable, Mark.
Yeah.
And the gripe is the same. What the hell is going on? We vote conservatives in, and we have, and you name the category of policy, border security, election integrity, school choice, property taxes. You brought all this stuff up on your website. What did you say? The House of Representatives in the state of Texas is where Bill's good, solid conservative policy goes to die. It's a graveyard. What the hell's going on? That's what I'm saying. I'm suggesting you're walking into a cultural malaise there. And so I think you, and I'm saying this openly, I'm trying to back it up as well. You have both the conviction and the policy. And it seems like we have to split, Nico, between one or the other. This guy's got great policy, but he has no, what do you say? Cuyans.
Yeah, he's got the cuyans.
I can't find that in the dictionary.
Or he's got lots of courage, but terrible policy.
Yeah,
it's like, can we please get both?
We call them ganas or huevos, whatever you want to say. But here's the deal. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be big brother here for a second, but I want to be objective. You know, you say Mark was as tenacious as a weed. I mean, he used to be hard-headed. I couldn't. It was like, in my opinion, as he was younger, uncorrectable. I was like, oh, crap. This guy, I mean, yes, he got a great opinion. You have a great logic, but he won't course correct. I have to say this, man. I've seen a maturity over him in the last 5 years that I'm very proud to say. I mean, just his comfort. He's comfortable in his skin. Like I said, coming up after my pop and I, it's different. It must be weird. I mean, but he's paved his own path. He's doing it for the right reason. He's got the conviction. He's got the courage. He's a fighter, but he's got the moral compass and the humility. See, we talk about because we don't want to be bulls in a China store. Mark has the humility and the common sense to course correct if somebody can show him truth and reasoning why he's wrong. But what he's firm on, he's thought it through and he's worked it out. And he's not going to compromise in that sense when he knows what's right and wrong and wrong. Right? The definitions of right and wrong are so skewed these days. That's the problem. And so we need people in the House, in the Senate, that can have conversation. Mark will have conversation. Mark loves meeting with people that didn't vote for him or don't support him, and then have conversation, listen about it. I did the same thing. And we have to have conversation. And even to say, you didn't vote for me, I'm going to represent you. The people that didn't vote for Mark so far, he's going to still give you his time, and he's still going to represent you. And he wants to hear from you. That's where we have to be. It's not, oh, you didn't vote for me, screw you, I'm not the one. That's not the way it works. That's not what a constitutional republic is about. It's let me bring you in the fold because I'm still your representative too. So I want to hear from you. Now the voice of the people needs to be heard. You're part of the people. That's the mindset, but that's not how politics is today. And that's what I think also Mark will bring to the table. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you didn't vote for Mark, you're still going to have an advocate in there and he wants to try to gain your support over the years if he's in office, God willing. But so I wanted to say that because yes, I'm proud of because we need someone that has that brass tacks, the cuyans, as I say, that can stand for something and is someone that's been in a war and been in a fight and the stuff that our family's been through and Mark's been through as well. He's got the battle scars. You think he gives two craps about what some loud, person just because they have tambourines are going to call him names? Oh, he's going to call me names. Oh crap, I'm going to get canceled or I'm going to get this. Mark's not influenced by that stuff. I mean, we've dealt with real life with our brother passing and stuff that we've been through, and then him having to go through all the crap I went through in politics and how vicious it can be. He saw it, and he still decided to get into this war zone, which tells you something. He's either nuts or he's genuine about what he wants to do, and he's both.
It truly is, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it is a serious problem. I think it is a cultural war, and you're going to have plenty of political battles. So I want to build on what you just said and then ask Mark a question if I can.
Go ahead.
Because we've had that 86-64 split for a long time. But when people just do the math, what's happening is this. For the longest time, if you've got 64 Democrats, and they're going to vote in sync, you can say a lot of things you want about Democrats, but those suckers are unified. Yeah. Holy crap. I mean, they'll unify in a heartbeat around stupidity, but it's still unity. And so you've got 64 Democrats that will march lock and step. And we've had consistently, Nico, is we've seen about 12 Republicans that have consistently abandoned good conservative policy, teamed up with those Democrats, and basically made any good conservative bill that comes to the floor moot. So what you've got, basically then, you've got a 76-74 split. And so they create just enough of a majority to basically squelch any conservative policy. So this is where we get back to that ideal conservative candidate. And what I'm saying is I think you're that person. And the reason is because you got great policy. You're also tenacious. You've got a healthy level of stubbornness that I think will help you. But I think Nico's right. You gotta bring those 12.
Yes.
I don't think those 12 are lost. We could argue they're confused, but I don't think they're lost. But it's gonna take somebody with strength and with clarity to bring to peel some of those 12 back to sanity. Yeah. And I just think you're going to be engaged in that kind of discourse all the time.
Have you thought about that, Mark?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you? I mean, because I know you.
I was just going to ask that. Have you thought about that?
The way I describe it is this, right? Is being a defense attorney throughout the state. I've represented clients in about 55 or 60 different counties throughout Texas, as far west as Pecos, all through the valley to Laredo, as far east as Nacogdoches, Paris, and northern Texas. And, you know, when you walk into a county where they don't know you, extremely conservative in the legal sense, right, where they put you in prison for a long period of time for marijuana, and you're representing somebody that they're diametrically opposed to mercy or reasoning or doing it other than the way they've always done it, you have to figure out how to communicate with them in a way that makes them see your client, makes it see reason without sacrificing their rights. And I've been blessed. I've had a good track record doing that. I think that's going to help in the house. It's like Pop always said, you can tell someone anything if you tell them the right way.
That's right.
And they might even thank you for it. And we've lost the ability. I really think the problem is people don't compete anymore. Like growing up, playing sports, you get hit in the nose, bloody nose, get angry, aggressive, and y'all have a hard fight. And then afterwards, you go grab a beer or grab a bite to eat, and you say, hey, you know what? That was a good game. We'll live another day to have another battle, another game, another fight. And we've lost the ability to disagree without taking it as a personal attack. And we have to get back to just common sense, go to the core, go to the foundation, the principles, talk logically, sternly, openly, don't yield, and start bringing them over. And that's going to happen. And people are ready for it. I mean, yesterday, or was it Wednesday, a guy, I was like, hey, I hope I earn your vote. And he's like, no, I'm Democrat. And I said, well, I hope to earn your vote in November. And he said this. He goes, well, anybody but Biden.
He said that?
He said that. God's honest truth. Now, that was only one person out of, I don't know, 500 or however many hundreds I've talked to, but still, people are tired.
They are.
I believe that we have the same recipe for why Trump had such overwhelming support. People are frustrated. Their fears, their issues aren't being answered by very few people, and they desperately want a solution. They want that safety and security. I mean, I go to H-E-B and I spend $200, and I'm not buying caviar and steak. I fill up my truck and it's $85. I mean, we can't afford to live the life right now. We can't afford to take care of our families.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what people are worried about, the border and their pocketbooks, first and foremost.
Did you catch what he said, though? I don't want this to lead him over. So, I'm Democrat. I hope I can earn your vote in November. That's the mindset we should have. That's the mindset. But it's not, I'm not entitled to it. It's like, oh, okay, you're in that tribe. Forget about it. I'm not going to represent you if I win. No, I want to earn your support. I want to earn your vote. I want to earn your trust. That's the key. That's the mindset. And he said it organically, and that's what we need, not just from Mark, but from any candidate that wants to serve in any position. That's the mindset. It's not like, oh, I don't care what you think because you're on the other tribe or you're in the other team. That's the mindset of a true public servant. So I didn't want that to gloss over. George, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say there is a fringe. There's a fringe of the anti-American left that's probably a sunk cost. But we shouldn't just assume that they're lost. But you got to have some, because I mean that's lazy, nothing you can do for them. But what do you always say? Don't leave anything on the table, man.
Nothing.
Never assume. And I just think that it's an important, it's a critical character trait that I think you're bringing. I'm not seeing that from your opponent. He doesn't want to engage. There's just a ludicrous sense of entitlement. I mean, it really is.
For some,
yes.
Yeah.
But the president.
But Mark, look, Steve Allison has been entrenched in that, and I know we're going to talk about the topics, by the way, everybody. So after the next break, we're going to all jump in. I want to hear Mark's opinions on topics we're going to be talking about today, from Biden visiting the border to Trump visiting the border to Trump's Michigan win to SCOTUS taking on. I guess they've agreed to hear the presidential immunity case, and then of course we have one other topic we're going to talk about. But this is how it needs to be. I mean, Steve Allison doesn't want to engage. I don't forget the point I was trying to make. But Steve Allison doesn't want to engage. He's throwing out these attacks. I think it's an act of desperation. Mark's ready to address those attacks, and he wants to discuss. He wants to earn people's votes. He's applying for a job, and a job that's unforgiving, by the way, if it's done properly. But he's applying for a job because guess what? What he does in the House affects his own kids, affects his nieces and nephews, affects his parents, affects his brother, affects everybody's friends and his foes. I mean, it affects everybody. And people don't realize how important that position is. And state senators. I mean, and then that trickles down to what a DA can do, right? That's how it all works together. Yeah. You're given these what you can and can't do. And then Ken Paxton can't enforce certain laws because he can't. People talk about voter integrity and things, and the DA is the one that has to enforce that law. That's the way it is on the books right now. And so you have to have the rules of engagement that a DA, a county attorney, that police chief and city council, everybody else has to work with. That starts from the people that write the bills, and they hear from the people that they represent. That's how it all works. Then you have the governor and the lieutenant governor, and then there's a checks and balance in there between the Senate and then the House, and that's a big part of it. And so Mark in there will bring a practicality to our justice system because he's worked on it. And he's seen it for many years, and he's an advocate. And the fact that, he's worked in, this guy's a Texas lawyer. I mean, he really is. He travels all over the place. He's crazy, but he does it, and he's gotten a lot of experience from that. So I know we're going to go to break, Karen. I'll let you go to break, and then when we get back, we'll jump into these topics.
Absolutely. And there is one thing that I want to talk about when it comes to Trump's win in Michigan. I don't know if we're going to be going to that topic or if we're going to go to the border, but there are so many things, so you cannot go away. Please come back for more on Sidebar. us what topic that we're going to talk about, but I did want to bring up something. You said, George, that it's an 86-64 split and that there are these 12 Republicans that continue to abandon any type of Republican policy by going and voting for the Democrats and it being unified. But when I was looking at the Michigan victory for Trump, I was thinking, okay, we're talking about representatives there that are not unified, Republican, but obviously the people that are voting aren't even unified because people are still voting for DeSantis and Ramaswamy. So how is it that our representatives can even feel unified when the people aren't even unified yet? I mean, obviously Trump's the winner, but isn't there more to the story when people are still voting for others?
There are. I think evaluating the split of the electorate from Iowa to New Hampshire to South Carolina and to Michigan, there's some obvious differences. We had an open, basically all of them, you had opportunities, excuse me, for Democrats to go and vote for Republicans.
Right.
You also, but it was kind of weird. In Iowa, you had this sort of semi-caucus thing going on. My point is, you didn't really have much of an election night there. You had kind of a semi-caucus going on. Joe Biden's the presumptive. In New Hampshire, you had a write-in primary, and that wasn't much of an election. In South Carolina, you had a Democrat election and a Republican election that were on different days. And so you only had basically 131,000 Democrats show up to vote for Joe Biden in South Carolina. And you had a lot of them that actually voted for Nikki Haley against Trump. What's interesting about Michigan is that you actually had a Democrat election on the same night as you had an election for Republicans on that same night. And there, the Democrats actually were tied up. They were sort of busy. They were voting in their own election. And so you actually saw Trump actually get near 70%. It was only, he won 51% in Iowa, he won 54% in New Hampshire, he was at 60% in South Carolina, and he was at 68% in Michigan. It was a notable increase because Democrats were tied up voting for their own people. Versus, and it is a fact, if you look at the electric split, you actually had Democrats, a significant number of them vote for Haley. Now, Trump can take some comfort in that, in the sense that that can't happen in the general, and it won't happen in general. They're going to vote for their person. But I think that there's a warning in there. I mean, there's a lot of, triumphalism for Trump. Legitimately, these are sizable wins. But if you look at the breakdown, there's still people voting for DeSantis. There's still people voting for Ramaswamy. There's still people voting for Christie. Why? And if you add it up, it's about 5 percentage points. That makes a difference. If those people remain recalcitrant in the general election, that makes a difference. How do you win those people over? Some of them, probably not. But my point is, we're in an age where every vote counts, literally. You can cheat in that 2 to 3% window pretty comfortably. So, Mark, you're kind of in a microcosm view of this right now because you're going through the same thing. What do we do? What does Trump have to do to bring those individuals across? What do we got to do to bring them across?
Well, I mean, his race is one of the few times in history where we don't have to, speculate. We've seen 4 years of Trump in office, and we've seen 3 years in Biden office. We saw prosperity, freedom, success, security, safety, and we've seen inflation, danger, just destruction of our country. If they're voting for Ramaswamy, if they're voting for DeSantis, I'm not worried about it. I think they're going to vote Trump versus Joe Biden. Nikki Haley, the never Trumpers, is the dangerous one because, I don't know how you can say that you believe in conservative principles, that you believe in this country, you believe in freedom, and then vote for Biden over Trump. I mean, I would take mean tweets and $2 gas and a safe border any day of the week over what we're dealing with now. And so, unfortunately, Trump is not going to change who he is, and he speaks his mind, whether we like it or not. And we collectively have to put the efforts in on, I think, really showing. We want 4 more years of the 3 years we've just had, or the 4 years before that, and take emotion out of it. That's, we have to make it real to those people why their families and their future depends upon it, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and you're a great observation. George and I briefly talked about this. You know, there's 4 types of Trump responses. There's Trump deranged syndrome. That's very, very real. I've talked about that on the show before. There's Trump euphoria, as if he walks on water between that's ridiculous too. And then there's Trump fatigue. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then there's a Trump realist, which I think all of us are Trump realists. We call balls and strikes, and we like something, we say it. We don't, we say it also. I think some of these votes were principle votes. Like, oh, Trump irritates the crap out of me. I'm going to vote for Vivek or Ron or whatever else on the principle. But many of those, to Mark's point, I think are going to come home in the election. And so I think that the appeal needs to be, look, if you're truly a Republican, if you're truly a conservative-minded person, you just really have to think about the ideas. Think about the result, like Mark said. You just, how you doing? As Dr. Phil says, how's it working out for you? Yeah. So, I mean, how's this working out for us? And we just have to really make that appeal, not in a mean way, in just a very objective way, and really try to separate our emotions. To me, and I would say this if I knew someone and I got permission understanding their broccoli, I'm not going to say it the way I'm going to say it on the after show, Kurt. Don't worry about it. But, I mean, that's like someone, if someone doesn't like dog crap, I would say the other word. Oh, I can't stand it. I don't like broccoli. Sorry, so I'm gonna eat dog crap because I don't like broccoli. I mean, no, if you don't like broccoli, eat asparagus or eat something else. I mean, you don't eat dog crap because you don't like broccoli. So just because you don't like Trump, and what are you gonna do? You're gonna substitute that with dog crap and the ideas. I'm talking about ideologically, and then the results we're talking about. We really have to get to that point. I hope that Trump stays on this path. I know we're on this roller coaster with him. The way he conducted himself during the Laura Ingraham interview is truly the demeanor that I hope now that he's past kind of the Royal Rumble, I'm glad he's not talking about Nikki Haley anymore. She's irrelevant in the primary. Or
Ron DeSantis.
Or she's just quit talking about, and I'm glad he listened to somebody, or he just woke up himself. And he's talking about Biden. He's talking about the future. He's talking about us. Mm-hmm. That's the and the way he did it, the demeanor he did it. And I don't know if he thought of this before, because you know that guy is a marketing dude, or he just came off because he's off the cuff guy too. He's like, they asked him about revenge. The best revenge is success. Mm-hmm. That needs to be the message moving forward. Yep. That's the message. You know what? And it's really biblical, right? You treat someone that hates you, you treat them well, and it's like pouring hot, scalding water over them because and that's tough for me. I'm still working on that one. But I'm just saying, it's the best revenge is success, because we get blessed by it. The people of the United States will be blessed by that. Sure. I pray that that's his demeanor moving forward. Still, look to Mark's sake, you get what you get with Trump. The same reason why he frustrates the crap out of us is the same reason why you need him against the craziness of the left. And so we just have to check our feelings and our emotions, and just say, look, we have a true comparison. We have 3.5 years of Biden. We had 4 years of Trump, well, really 3.5 or 3 because of all the COVID and all the craziness. So we really have a 1-for-1 comparison. And then just use your reasoning. And what kind of lifestyle do you want for you, your family, your future? Because this is a critical election.
I'm looking for signs that he's able to coalesce support. I guess that's basically my concern here. Do you think he's going to be able to do that? You think he's going to be able to coalesce that support?
I do. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off. I have no doubt he's going to win. I believe in my bones.
Yeah.
But if you look at this is Michigan, right? You're talking about?
Well, I've started looking at that trend from Iowa just to see if there's a trend. Because if you look at, just jumping back to South Carolina for just a moment, I thought he did remarkably well. Michigan gives me hope. South Carolina gave me pause. Because remember, Nico started texting early that night. And we were borderline freaking out. Because at about 3-4% of the vote, Trump's winning by 9%. And Nico's like 30% my ass.
Yeah, I was pissed. I can't stand the oversell, man.
And I responded and said, hey, well, take it easy. Let's see what happens. And then
I just saw the headline. I went bananas.
And then ultimately he won by 20 points, which is, that's a significant win, Mark. But he lost metropolitan and suburban areas in a significant way. And, of course, 80% of the U.S. population reside in those areas. And so I just have a question mark. I mean, no one's more for Trump than me, I promise you. But I'm just always wondering. And certainly he's got really great people, and he can certainly afford to pay them. And I told Nico, I said, I just want him to tell him the truth, right? To be doing realistic analyses and making sure they're doing everything they can to shore up, leave nothing on the table. Go ahead.
So you're not going to find this in the mainstream media, but the reason I was asking about Michigan, So they brought up some numbers, and granted, I didn't vet the numbers, but the fact it's from somewhere. But in 2024, as opposed to 2020, 2016, the uncommitted for the Democrats skyrocketed like 6 times for Biden.
Yes.
Trump's numbers actually, the uncommitteds got less.
Yes.
And so his support in our base is coalescing. Again, when I read this morning, I thought of the guy yesterday or guy Wednesday that said anybody but Biden. Like,
yeah,
people, I don't believe this race. I believe God's using this race for this. I don't think people are going to wake up and just leave the Democratic Party, but it's the stepping stone. Because if someone can say that I'm not going to vote for the president at the Democratic Party and they're Democrats, then they're opening their eyes to the flaws of that ideology and how it's being run.
It's good.
And that's the stepping stone to slowly bring them over. You know, when I ran for the DA race, we got about 2% of those people. Now, they're not going to be Republican, but they voted for us over Joe Gonzalez. And that's a stepping stone to eventually open their eyes and keep working on them, because we have to grow them. I mean, if we don't grow this party, we are dead.
Mark, that's such a good point, because I always say on the show, and you probably don't listen to us, but I mean, I say to the show that really this we have to start talking about ideas over platform. I mean, over tribalistic groups. Just talk about ideas. And the hope that I have is people like Joe Rogan, I always bring up on the show. He ain't voting for Biden. He's been open about that. Michael Rappaport, if you don't know who he is, just Google who he is. He's an actor who was a scathing Trump deranged syndrome dude. And the medicine for that is Biden, by the way, for Trump deranged syndrome. I'm going to that point that you heard from this person, anyone from Biden making that point. Killer Mike, I didn't know who this dude was. He's some rapper guy that's whatever, that has social justice arguments, and he's not voting. And he told Bill Maher on his show, 50 Cent. Russell Brand now is a libertarian, and he used to be a left-wing progressive dude. And there's more, by the way. that was off the top of my head. I have hope, to Mark's point, that if we can talk about ideas and compare them with the ideas, not name-calling of the Democrat Party, of that group, then you bring people over slowly and humbly do that.
Okay, we have to take a break. We will be right back with more on Sidebar.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience.
Already. Whew. I mean, almost. We have a few more minutes, but come on.
We got the after show.
We are going to continue. If you have not ever joined us on the after show, just go to sidebartv.com and you'll find a place.
It's more colorful because Kurt doesn't have to worry about bleeping something.
Right. I laughed really hard, and I always laugh at some of the headlines that the Babylon Bee has. And one that they had this week is Biden arrives at the border to address his voters. I was like, it's funny, but it's not funny.
And you have thousands of illegal aliens crossing the river.
Well, in Brownsville, it's 6. I mean, Brownsville's not the battle zone, but Brownsville has the wire that Biden was trying to take down. The only reason why Biden was there in Brownsville is because of this, all the negative publicity that came from the horrific murder of Miss Riley. I mean, she was just jogging.
Yeah.
Look, Mark and I have lived this, the new normal. August 15th, 1996, at 2:14 in the morning, changed the LaHood household forever. Now, you've heard me say, would I take that away, knowing what I know now and everything, how God has used that, which is Romans 8:28. But no, I wouldn't, believe it or not. But still, there was a new normal. And my parents were cheated out of the children that he would have had and the life we would have had. Now, that would have changed everything, and God knows what he's doing, and we trust him. But it was a terrible journey at first. It was very hard. It was broke up our family. It broke up us. We each had to deal with it ourselves because we didn't deal with it as a family unit. That's what I'm thinking about without the Riley family, because we lived it. And we didn't get a phone call. We walked out to it in our driveway. And so we get so... We get so coarse, and we get so sterile because we hear another bad story, we hear another tragic. Oh, it's terrible, but that family is living in this new normal right now, and that's on someone that's on Biden's hands. I'm saying, he's got blood on his hands. It really does. They had this person. He still deserves due process, but look, it is what it is. They had this person in New York. They had him. God bless you, Dom. They had him over there. So this shouldn't have happened. And there's many more crimes that have happened that don't get the publicity because because the media is paid. Look, it is. The media is what it is. They're not calling balls and strikes anymore, most of them. They have an agenda and they want to spin things and all this other stuff. And so that's the reality. So you have Biden at the border at Brownsville talking about, we have to, it's time. It's time. What are you talking about? He wants to fix this. Well, you don't get to burn the barn down because of your ideas, and then build one half of a wall of the barn back up and then get credit for building the wall. You burned the barn down, you stupid SOB. You burned the barn down. You don't get credit for putting the frame back up. If it wasn't for you and your stupid ideas, the barn would have been burned down. You don't get credit for the frame. But that's the mindset, and that's the messaging of the left. And then you got to be able to point these things out. And he said, we need to secure the border. We need to protect Brownsville and the people of America. And we need to also, for the people that have a right to be here. You still can't control yourself. You can't help yourself to talk about foreigners over Americans. He just couldn't help it because he's got people in his ear. Don't you dare. It's almost like Joe Gonzalez here with the Wren Collective over there, giving him, and I don't know if you saw the KSAT, we'll talk about it on the after show, where he lied on KSAT Live TV. He said, they just helped me with my talking points. They're giving you your policies. You don't think that's happening to Joe Biden? Of course it is. There's think tanks out there, and there's people controlling these puppets, and they're giving them their policies. You're the elected official. Whether it's the DA, the president, the governor, the people elected you. I want to hear from you. And if your policies suck, then we the people will fire you. If your policies, if your style sucks, but your policies are good, I'll take your policies over your style any day of the week, which is Mark's point earlier. And so you have Biden that couldn't help himself. He had to talk about the migrants that have a right to be. No, they don't have a right to be anywhere. I don't know what you're talking about. They don't have a constitutional right. Americans do. And that's why finally people in Chicago and New York are saying, wait a minute, you're giving these people our housing. Forget about the hotel they took over. You're giving them cards with
schools.
And schools.
You're kicking kids out of school to house them in the school in New York. I mean, it's ridiculous.
See the way he cuts me off? That's why he's bold. He's bold. That's why we need him in the house. I love it. It's the real LaHood right there.
Family is just like my family.
Right. I'll stand down to this dude. Whenever you jump in, whenever you want to, Mark.
We don't do etiquette here anyway.
Yeah, whatever.
Now who has the shank?
Fit right in, baby.
Yeah. All I'm saying is he couldn't help it. And then Trump on the other side, in the battle zone, where he's saying this is a war, and then he mentioned Miss Riley's name. Yeah. He said it. He goes, Biden can't mention her name. Why? Because it goes against the narrative of his side. But he's only there because he has to be there. To credit to Federer, I mean, he's going away from his party. Henry Cuellar on the border because he's in the middle of it. He separates from the party.
I'm so surprised about him, too.
Well, no, but you can't be surprised about it. He's hearing from his people. Yeah. They're in a crap storm, and then they're being overrun. And so that's why he keeps getting reelected no matter what.
He's an old school Democrat.
And he's an old school blue dog. You're right, Mark. Yeah.
Not one of these progressives.
Yeah. So this is the tale of two stories when you look at Biden and, hey, come on, guys, we got to get together. I need help. Like, he's the victim here. I want to fix this problem. What are you talking about, man? I mean, but people just need a wise, and I think people are seeing through this. They're seeing through this because you look and you listen to the people talking. If it's not The View, and if it's not MSNBC and Joe Scarborough, that guy is beyond help. I mean, he makes Michael Rappaport look like Dan Bongino. I mean, this guy's nuts. But this look, I'll agree with anybody that's right. I'll listen to somebody, Don Lemon. I don't care who it is. If they're right about something, I'm gonna say, you know what? I agree with you on this. I disagree with you on everything else. We have to get back to that, to Mark's point earlier, and that's why I think we need to talk about ideas and not label those ideas as conservative, they're just common sense. I mean, I like conservative. I'm not afraid of the word conservative, by the way. But when I think of conservative ideas, I think of common sense ideas. And when you really present them in a way that makes sense to people, and I think Mark has had a lot of experience doing that over the last 2 years, I mean, people really listen to you, Mark. You talked about that when you talked to people that didn't support you initially, or that they're Democrat for life, right?
Yeah, no, they stopped me and they said, don't waste your time. I'll never vote a Republican in my life. I said, I respect that. I just want to talk to you. And they did. And, I'm not going to pretend I want them all over, but a good number that said, I'll never vote for a Republican said, you have my vote. And I believe them because they stopped me and told me they weren't going to vote for me. But I think it comes back to the words we use, because they're not migrants. They're illegal. They're illegal aliens. Yeah. And we have to call them illegal aliens. It's not
to be mean.
That's right.
It's not mean.
That's right.
It's
exactly
the actual
right.
law. It's the federal. They're illegal aliens.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they're not coming here legally.
That's right.
And that's the issue. We need immigration. We cannot. This country was founded on it. We can't breed enough. We need them to keep feeding the success of this country. But we need to know who they are. They need to come legally. And if they don't come legally, they don't get rights. They don't get benefits. They don't get our money. They don't get our, like Catholic Charities is running the Illegal Alien Center in San Pedro.
Sure.
And I'm okay with that, because the function of the church is to do these humanitarian things, not the government. The government's duties and obligations are for us, the people. A father's duty is to his family and his wife, not the neighbor, until you take care of your family first. And I don't think that makes me unchristian to say, my family comes first before I take care of your family.
But it's crossed the line, hasn't it, Mark? Because it isn't that the church is taking contributions from its members to then provide humanitarian services. The problem is that the church is now in cahoots with respect. It's in cahoots with the federal government, taking tax-subsidized dollars.
That's the issue.
That people are not okay with.
Yes, I agree with that.
And then they're enabling, they're sort of aiding and abetting lawlessness in the name of Jesus. And here we go talking religion and politics again.
Sorry, but
all right.
The problem.
I'm not sorry.
I was going to say, the problem with not talking religion and politics is that if you leave religion out of it, all you're left with is politics, and then invariably you realize that politics becomes your religion.
Yeah, it's true.
So one of them has to inform the other. So I'm glad that you brought up God earlier.
Well, we have to bring it up.
I was just going to ask you: do you talk about your faith when you talk to people, potential voters? What do you say?
Well, I mean, two things. One, I start off with the fact that people don't understand separation of church and state doesn't mean that the church shouldn't be in the state. Our Declaration of Independence says we are endowed by our Creator, God, with unalienable rights. Right. Our Declaration of Independence cites God. Separation of church and state doesn't mean that prayer shouldn't be in school or prayer shouldn't be in the court. It just means that the government cannot persecute you if you don't believe whatever faith it is. We have conceded. We can't concede an inch. We have a line, and it starts with one toe, and then one more toe, and then one more toe, and then 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, now it's not a toe. We're 100 yards past the line. And so, do I shove it down the throats? I don't. But just like I don't shove it down the throat that I'm Republican, or that I vote for Trump, or that I am pro-life from conception to death, that the Second Amendment shall not be infringed, and that it should be expanded for law-abiding citizens to carry anywhere. But I don't shy away from it. When they ask me those questions, and I got asked those three questions were the ones they asked me when I was hitting the D5s, D4s. Abortion, gun control, and Trump. And I don't lie to them. I tell people, you may not like what I have to say. I'm never going to blow smoke. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. And then
you can say ass on the radio. Blow smoke up here.
Okay. It's okay. But, because it comes to this. We're not here to placate people. When we vote for somebody, we don't agree with everything for anybody.
That's right.
You just have this balancing act. What is most important to me, and what do I not like? And if I like more and more important, more of those things I value, then I'm going to vote for you. And I'm going to support you. And we have to get back to that, just saying, hey, listen, you don't like this about me. Cool. Let me show you why.
Well, real quick, before you, don't forget your thought. With religion and politics, I've said before, what religion really means is your worldview. What's your worldview? I have a biblical worldview. So why wouldn't I want to talk to you about my worldview if I'm going to be your neighbor and we're going to work together and live together? My politics, as we say, politique comes from a set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the affairs of others, is a good working definition of politics. Well, politique just means, what are your ideas? What are you advocating? I want to know what your worldview is and what you're advocating. Why wouldn't you want to talk about your religion and politics? What is your worldview and what are you advocating? those are conversations that we need to have so we can be good neighbors. I mean, there's people that and you know some of these people, Mark, you do have them too. Mark and I passionately disagree with, but we dearly love each other. We dearly love each other, and we agree on enough to say that I want what's best for you, I want to protect you. We do have a bedrock of understanding and foundation in there, so we do need it. I just wanted to make sure the label religion and politics shuts people up, but really it's just what is your worldview and what are you advocating to each other? We need to discuss that.
Yeah, because I mean, at the core of your belief system is the notion that God believes that your opponent is an image bearer.
Yep.
And has fundamental dignity. And regardless of whatever you're disagreeing with, that person has eternal and inherent value. And it's worth tarrying with that person. It's worth
that goes back to life.
It really does. I was just going to ask about that. That wasn't planned.
Sorry. We got 30 seconds.
The Republican National Committee, even CPAC, over the last 10 to 15 years, they've really tried to avoid conversations about abortion. I think it's a mistake because I think we have an opportunity to educate people on how to think about that. I get the sense you're not running away from those discussions.
Hold on. Hold your answer. We're about ready to go.
Hold your answer, guys. Thanks for joining us today on the radio portion of this. We've been on Facebook Live the whole time also. But join us. We're going to jump on to it for another 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. Share this conversation with someone you think might benefit from it. Have a very blessed weekend. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, now you can cuss up a storm, Nico.
Bleep, bleep, bleep. All right, at the right time.
Oh, my God. It's so funny because when you talk about God being part of how America was created, it makes me so sad that Christians, are they embarrassed to say they're Christians? I mean, is that why people shy away from religion? Or is it that just the whole God thing is like not a part of being an American anymore?
Well, if you look at people, I mean, people are hungry for something. They've transformed God into the universe because they know that they know that there's a personal. And there was a discussion on a podcast. Gosh, I was like, oh, coach put me in. I wish I was there. They were talking about it on this podcast that someone had sent me about how people are hungry or yearning for a transcendent being that's personal. But if you call it God of the Bible, then you say, damn, then I can't do what I want. But if I take that personal being and understand that there's a personal relationship, but I don't call it the God of the Bible and I call it the universe, whatever that shit that means, but, you know, then I can acknowledge that there's something outside of time, space, and matter because it just makes sense. It doesn't make any sense when you talk about the fine-tuning argument and the specificity and the consciousness and where do you get a moral compass from if you don't have someone outside of time, space, and matter that sets it? Because then it's just an opinion. Then Hitler wasn't wrong. Then nothing's wrong. It's just an opinion. So I don't know why anybody's pissed off for their spouse cheating on them or murdering a baby. It's just an opinion. If you don't like it, then kill the person before they murder the baby. I mean, it turns into a jungle is my point. So people are, they go, gosh, we have to have a moral compass. There has to be this set of universal, inalienable ideas, right? They don't separate us. It goes back to our Declaration of Independence that Mark said on the show. And then also this fine-tuning argument that, have you looked at the universe? I mean, it was Joe Rogan and what's his name?
Peterson?
No, not Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy he's a rapper. He's been getting into a bunch of shit with people lately. Kit. or Cat. What is it? Not Kid Rock. He's black. I said black guy. Can't you pay attention?
He's had quite a few religious conversations that are actually really good.
He was, but this guy, he's been in
Kanye West.
No.
So what did he say? What did he say?
Cat Williams. That's him. I said Cat. Comedian. Thank you. That's it.
Oh, no
singer.
wonder we couldn't guess.
Every black guy's a singer, I guess, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm racist. So Cat Williams, he's a comedian. So they really got into this discussion of the fine tuning argument. Really, that's where got him. He's like, wait a minute, have you paid attention? Have you looked at the Earth from out here? And and Joe Rogan has gone from ridiculing Christians.
No, he's open.
I mean, he's right.
He's about to convert. I believe that.
He admitted to reading the. I was so. He's admitted twice that I've seen lately because people know how passionate we are, and so they send me stuff. And Sal, I don't know if you were on the text today. So Cat Williams, Joe Rogan has admitted to reading the Bible. Praise God for that. Mm-hmm. I wish I could talk to the guy about it because I don't know if he's getting good counsel and practical apologetics, defense of. But he's reading the Bible. It makes sense to him. And then also the moral compass argument. So morality and the fine-tuning argument is what got people. So the more people, Karen, I think to your question, sorry for the long answer, are open to talking about. But Christians aren't comfortable. George and I always make this point on R-Rated.
I was just going to bring that up.
We don't know what the hell we believe. Christians we don't understand systematic theology. Mm-hmm. We can't have a practical, because the Bible said so. If this son of a bitch doesn't read the Bible, they don't care what the Bible says. We have to start talking about back to ideas and principles. Yep. And like Paul did in the book of Acts, he gave an apologia, which comes from the Greek word to give an answer, a defense. He gave an apologia, apologetics. He gave a defense for the Christian ideology. To the Jew, he was a Jew. To the Gentile, he was a Gentile. He knew the opponent's argument better than they did, and he met them where they're at, didn't stay there with them, and brought them over. We've got to think of it that way, and that's why someone like Jordan Peterson, who, from all that I can see, I think he's close also. He has not made a submissive commitment to
His wife
to Christ.
converted.
His wife did to a Christian? Good to hear that then. Okay, I didn't know that. But I think Jordan's still there. But Jordan has done more for opening people's minds, to include Joe Rogan's and Dave Rubin and some other people. They're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not an atheist anymore. And atheism is it's dead. I mean, people are not, the atheist group are not dead. The nuns group is growing, as George and I have talked about.
What is
about
that?
A third. It's
Go,
about
George.
A third. People who are not religiously affiliated with any particular faith. It shows up consistently on all the major surveys, particularly Pew Research. The first one goes back to 2007, and they had 35,000 respondents. And you see that group. That group is growing by about 7 percentage points by about every 7 years.
Wow, that's
big. And that's a stunning number.
Wow.
I mean, it begs the question, why is that happening? Separate discussion. But you said so many things.
I know.
That are worth asking. Mark, I want to ask
get him
Mark about it because Mark, you mentioned
Mark.
You mentioned a declaration because these are not just voters, they're people. And they're a lot of them are making decisions for candidates based on religious convictions. I like the definition of religion as a heart-deep commitment to something that you consider divine. And then Nico simplifying things for people, but I like to distinguish them, Nico, just for my own sanity. So religion is a heart-deep commitment to something you consider divine. Fill in the blank. We happen to believe it's the God of the Bible. The Declaration of Independence, you brought that up, it really starts with a theological statement. For all the furor about separating religion from politics, the Declaration of Independence,
the very first sentence,
commits the cardinal sin, right, of mixing religion and politics, because it starts with a theological statement, and then there are political implications to that theological statement.
Well, that's where all the rights derive from.
Exactly right.
Yep. They derive from God.
And then it goes down to naming the King of England, and a King of England that had broken the law, in their view, was guilty of lawlessness, of violating his own laws. I know there's no parallels to today. And then they said, look, there's about 27 grievances, and they're political statements. I mean, they're pretty granular. I mean, they talk about, you mentioned this week, we were talking about British soldiers being quartered in residential homes. I know we can never see that happening. And so you can literally read...
It's the Third Amendment. People don't know that.
Never say never.
I know.
It'll all happen if we allow it to.
Exactly right. History isn't just linear. It truly is cyclical. And I come back to that. I wrote a paper years ago on it. and I need to find it because I'm fascinated by this concept. We continue to repeat those mistakes for two reasons primarily. We don't live very long, Mark. And while we're living, most of us, in some way or another, are stupid. We don't take counsel when we should. We don't take advice. And this is sage advice. And we're destined to repeat those mistakes. Enter God through the person of Jesus Christ, who brings us back to sanity. And so I really think this is an age for great, solid candidates to bring back God into the conversation. And I think most voters are there, but there aren't enough leaders who are helping them have those conversations. Nico and I have done seminars on this legacy in the country. If you go back to the 1640s, there's a debate going on between John Locke and William Penn.
Yeah.
And William Penn saying, look, it's not enough to just have good laws, dude. You got to have good people who actually give a shit about good laws. Locke is saying, no, you just got to have really good laws. You really do. You got to have great policy. And Penn's saying, look, I respect you, but I think not. You got to have good people who out of their convictions, good convictions, formulate good laws, and then have the character to actually abide by those laws. Here we are again. Fast forward. I think we need to have the same conversations. We need leaders who have those same conversations.
Well, it's the same thing as the Bible. I mean, you have to have the faith, but then you have to live the faith.
Yeah.
It's no difference. You have the laws, but then you need people that actually exercise those laws and those principles. I mean, it's all just basic truth.
100%. We've been teaching on the men's Bible study on 2 Timothy 3. And that's, Paul's in a dungeon. It's his last letter. He's about to be killed. He knows it's at the end, 2 Timothy 4, when he talks about the last charge he gives. But in 2 Timothy 3:14 specifically, it's perilous times, it's last days. It's a big shitstorm out there. He's like, hey, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, but you, Christian. But he always makes this distinction from the shitstorm of the world and what's going on, and he describes it. But then he says, but you, follower of Christ, but you, Christian, you live differently. You don't, do not conform to the patterns of this world. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Romans 12:2, very consistent. But he gets to 2 Timothy 3:14, and he says, "But you continue in what you have learned." And here's the important part that I think that we're all alluding to, and been convinced of. It's not enough just to learn about the Bible or biblical. You have to be convinced of it. How the hell are you going to live it out if you're not truly persuaded by it? And that's the issue. And then that's when you can, in season and out of season, correct, encourage, and rebuke, 2 Timothy 4:2, and go into there. But with great patience and careful instruction, he says in 2 Timothy 4:2, 2 Timothy 4:2 and 3. Great patience is what Mark's showing. I think he's talking about with people that he disagrees with or disagree with you. Show great patience and careful instruction, because when you correct them lovingly or encourage them, it's with the truth. And it's courageous. You can be courageous and not have to be mad dogging people. People can just see your resolve. They go like, damn, this sumbitch really believes what he's saying. And he's steadfast. But the samurai mentality, see, people think everyone's got to talk shit today to think like you're a badass. I know MMA and it sells fights, and that's but the ones that are quiet, where I come from, it's like, damn, that dude's quiet. He's ready to go. I mean, the samurai wasn't talking. The samurai was quiet, chivalrous. We need to be spiritual samurais. I've been encouraging men, and this is George and I for years in the men's Bible study. But when they drew their sword, heads rolled. They were fierce warriors, but they were under control. That's what meekness is, right? The meek will inherit the land, in Matthew 5. And so we need to be meek. That's strength under control.
Sometimes meek means poor.
No, meek means weak. That's what they think. And meek just means you're strong as hell, but you're under control. You're not just a bull in a China store. Salo, when you want to say hi, people, you didn't even talk to the Pepos today. Come here, Salo. Talk to the Pepos.
Somebody made this comment that Mark has the, what do you call it? The Encino Library Poll sitting tan.
Oh, he's been there trying to earn votes and shake on people's hands. Yeah, but if he takes his shirt off, it's as white as his shirt. There you go.
Please don't.
Yeah. Did you say hello to the Pepos, Salo? The Pepos. Say hello to the Pepos.
Oh, no,
we haven't heard your
thanking
voice.
everybody for logging on. We've gotten more numbers every single time.
Oh, good.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ask him.
For example, you're close.
Get it. You don't care. Salo
we're on camera.
Get a little closer, Salo.
Have you ever seen Mr. Dude or whatever? The guy with.
Wait, speaking up, who kisses your dad more, you or Nico?
Mark sees him more.
¿Quién es más cariñoso? ¿Quién es más cariñoso?
Mark kisses.
There's no comparison. We love our dad equally.
No, you love your
No, but Mark
expression.
sees him more because he lives in the same neighborhood. So Mark kisses him more. We both kiss him when we see him and when he leaves. We kiss him.
Más con mamá?
You're trying to start a family fight here.
It's therapy. It's therapy.
Nico and I are together.
For the people that don't know who's older.
Bro, that's a sore subject. Because true story. Yeah. When I ran for DA,
Mark, talking the mic.
When I ran for DA, the very first person that recognized me outside of like blocking doors, I get in an Uber and the guy turns around and verbatim says, "Dare I say, are you Mark LaHood?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am. Thank you very much." And he said, "I voted for your son, Nico." And Nico is 6 years. I can't make that up. I can't.
Well, that's a true story.
That's a great testament that clean living and eating good and not drinking alcohol and taking care of yourself. You know, I rode hard and hung up wet.
He's battle tested. No, I'm 6 years older than Mark.
Wow, I did not know
Wait,
that.
what are you saying? You agree with the Uber driver, Mark?
And then about 3 weeks later, another guy picked up my wife who had picked me up, and he goes, "Is your father coming?" I can't make that up. That happened within about a month, and
No, they're just saying that, Mark. You look young. Thanks, Salo.
Looking at you like,
Salo doesn't talk all show and then says that.
and then he insults me. I'm never coming back.
Salo. The Speedy Gonzalez of the
I'm
conservative
going to start
party.
my own podcast called Barside.
Yeah, Barside. That's right. Go on, Karen. Good.
Well, do you think, I don't even know what I was going to ask you, but do you think when Trump won way back when, no one believed it in the media because no one was saying that they were going to vote for him? They were just like, yeah, you know, who would vote for that fool? But then it was like, okay, everybody that went to the voting booth voted for him. Do you think that this time people are not secretly not going to vote for Biden even though they are Democrats? Do you think that they're just going to be like, hey, I can't live like this even though I say I'm Democrat, Biden sticker, blah, blah, blah? Is it possible that it's going to be the same thing? People are hiding their real thoughts?
I believe polling is highly accurate except when you poll controversial subjects. So Trump underperformed in the polling because people were ashamed to admit it.
Yeah.
Same thing for the DA race. Abortion did not poll in the Republican and conservative circles as an important issue because people were ashamed to admit that they pretend to be pro-life, but they want the ability to live their life and do their fun stuff and not have to pay the consequences of it. And we saw nationwide the result of that. And so I have no doubt, because if you are a Democrat, the progressives, I mean, they are cannibals. If you're not, every day you got to be more progressive, more left, more walking away from God, and more open to just insanity. And if you don't worship at the altar of insanity, they will sacrifice you.
You're right.
I love it. It's how the issue is explained. It's how it's positioned. It's how it's articulated. And I keep coming back. I'm not of the mantra that says that abortion is just a death knell for Republicans. We shouldn't talk about it. And Democrats are going to win on that issue. I just don't buy it. I keep coming back to the numbers. In November, and Nico and I were chatting about this in the aftermath of the November election results. Every single pro-life governor, and I'm talking about openly pro-life governor who ran for re-election in November, won by large margins. Every single one. It's how it's articulated. It's how it's presented. It's how it's explained. Things aren't explained to people. Yep. This government mocks its constituents. It calls them idiots. It pretends they're brain dead. It dehumanizes people every single day. And people, Mark, are fed up. They want to be engaged with. They want to be treated with respect. This is our country. And that's why I think the illegal immigration, and you've talked a lot about that. We didn't get a chance, and I'd love to have Mark back to talk about the other issue that you've talked about that happens to be, and Nico knows this has been a soapbox for me for a long time because I've spent so much time in academia, the DEI issue.
Oh, yeah.
That is Mark's a significant problem. But getting back, well, the two are related because we've allowed hordes of illegal aliens to come into this country on this false bullshit notion of compassion. I'm all for compassion, but not at the expense of truth. In fact, we argue that you can't truly be compassionate at the cost of truth. You're a daddy. You know that. Are you truly compassionate with your kids if you can't correct them? And the notion of correction implies that there's a standard. There's something that is true, and there's something that is in opposition of the truth. Well, and we're not. I think that's fertile territory for people right now to continue to talk about those things. You're also a lawyer. You're a criminal defense lawyer, and I'm just thinking the two are also related. ICE just released a report, a 2023 report, that said of the 171,000, it did a study, and they looked specifically at a block of 171,000 illegal aliens that they had apprehended. And they said that 50% of those had significant criminal records.
Shocker.
And it was an average of about 4 convictions per person. And we're not talking about stealing pencils and erasers. We're talking about homicide, we're talking about rape, we're talking about acts of terrorism. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about. Americans sense that is a, this is a front porch issue.
Yeah.
It's not out there. It's here. Politicians aren't communicating this. That's been my criticism of Mike Johnson in the House. They're not making these issues granular. Mm-hmm. They're talking about them up here. Got to have people who really relate to the electorate where they're at. And what do you think about that, man? How can we do that better? Because we're sucking at it.
Treat it like a jury trial. When you have a jury trial, as a criminal defense lawyer, you are walking into a room where people walk in, whether they realize it or not, they are programmed to convict your client. They're programmed to find you guilty. That's just human nature. And
is that
yeah, it's true. It's true. You pull in a jury panel of 30, 50, 60, 100. You ask them, hey, is this guy guilty or not guilty? The vast majority are going to say guilty. That's just human nature. But think about it.
Why'd they get accused? Why are they sitting there? There's got to be. That's part of
where
our
there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah,
right. They're not there by accident.
Yeah.
Accusations have something. And so the way you overcome that is you have to understand the issue. You have to humanize it and make it real to them, because once the person, whether it's a judge, a prosecutor, or a jurist, once they stop looking at it as this piece of paper or this number or this abstract thing, and then it becomes real to them for whatever reason, whether it's, oh, my brother went through this, or my dad, or myself, or whatever it is, once it becomes real to them, then they are open to it. So that's issue number one. And we just have to be consistent. Our messaging sucks. The Democrats have perfected the art of the emotional lie. And so everything, that's why everything's, you're a bigot. You're anti-LGBT. You are racist. You're these raw emotional arguments, which aren't truthful, and people respond to that emotion versus logic. I can tell someone very logically, but logic doesn't have the same power as emotion, right? I mean, how many times do we believe something that we know is not true because our heart demands it? Mm-hmm. We're in denial. Same logic.
Mark's right, and you make it harder. So we tried a case just last week, and then in December I tried one with one of my law partners, Jason. It's a horrible accusation, sex assault of a child, and we had an innocent man on our hands. I mean, no SANE exam, sexual assault nurse examination, horrible investigation. I mean, an outcry that was delayed. There was motive to do it. I mean, it was horrible. But you look at them. The jury hears sex assault of a child, and they looked at our clients, and I called them out when I started doing jury selection. You should have seen the X amount of their faces. 87 people in a room. And they just look at your client with the disgust, because it's a disgusting allegation. And I said, can we just talk about how disgusting this allegation is?
Yeah.
It's like, you're right. I go, right. And Mr. Garcia, you looked at I won't say his name. He was acquitted, by the way, not guilty on 4 counts. Praise God. But I mean, and he was, he was an innocent man. I believe that. I'm not just saying that. I mean, those are the hard ones when you really know your client's innocent. I go, you didn't see it, but I wish I had a camera. You looked at him, and I'm sorry, we got to talk about this. Yeah. I mean, and everybody said, you're right. I mean, can someone be accused of agreeable, a disgusting allegation, but could they be falsely accused of it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. Then you start talking about principles. Then you have to bring them back out of the emotion. You acknowledge the emotion, then you take them away from the emotion, and you start talking about ideas like the presumption of innocence. I mean, Proverbs says that, the power of life and death is in the tongue. the accusation without two witnesses, and that's another proverb, in a witness, everyone sounds right during a civil lawsuit or during a lawsuit, they say in Scripture, in Proverbs, until the cross-examination occurs. So, and then we talk about constitutional concepts of cross-examination, jury by your peers, just an accusation versus beyond a reasonable doubt, burden of proof. And then you have to address the emotion to both Mark and George's point. This is not a losing issue if you handle it the right way. And I had a discussion with someone who's passionately pro-choice. And I said, we'll just talk about it. I said, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I think science backs us up, but I believe there's a child in there. I mean, you want to talk about viability? We can talk about viability. We can talk about whatever you want. But what am I supposed to do if I believe there's a child in there?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, all the false narratives to Mark's point of, oh, women are going to be convicted for murder and no exception for the safety of the mom. Well, no, there has to be exception for the safety of the mom, and no woman's going to be prosecuted. But again, when you stay quiet because you're not comfortable talking about topics, then if a lie goes unchecked, the lie becomes the truth. And so we've got to learn to talk about these things. And I just talked to this friend of mine, and he's a friend and not an acquaintance. And then I said, but I don't hear you and other pro-choice advocates trying to change the statute in the penal code. Because and the DA in this county on the Soto murders is like, and we may file another charge for that unborn child. The quote, I mean, we all saved it. So you're acknowledging an unborn child in there because that's what the statute says.
Exactly.
The statute says if you murder a child under 10 years old, and the reason why you face capital murder on a pregnant woman is because not that you murdered two people, although that's a good argument, you're acknowledging there's a person in there. It's because you murdered a child under 10 years old. What do I do with that? I mean, the statute even acknowledges a child under 10 years old. The DA in Bexar County admits it's a child under 10 years old. So then if we can all agree that there's a child in there, what do I do? Just ignore that fact?
I just wish more people love the law like you do.
I love the law.
It's because for their own good they need to know it.
I love the law and I love our Constitution. Yes. I love it. I don't like it. Yes. I love it. And that's why people need to go to Washington and Austin, and they give us our marching orders. They give us our rules of engagement. If we don't preserve the law and protect the Constitution, then it means nothing. And so I had that conversation with him about a child, and nobody's changing the capital murder statute because change the capital. If you really believe what you believe, take it out of the emotion and start changing. Approach our state legislature and change the capital murder statute. I don't know why we're talking about capital murder when a woman who's pregnant gets murdered. I mean, so I extend. See what I'm doing? I'm taking it back to an idea.
Absolutely.
Do you have a consistent idea? And there's not consistency when you take it outside of emotion. Now, does that take some time? Do we have to be better at making it quicker and work with PR groups and be, as Scripture says in Matthew 10:16, be shrewd as a snake but innocent as a dove? We need to be shrewd about it, and we need to think more about it, and we need to get with people that are good at messaging and start putting a message together and how to do a campaign and change the narrative. Because when you do this, which has taken 5-10 minutes, then people can say, all right, well, that's kind of different the way you're presenting it that way. I get that. And then you take it out of emotion. I'm passionate right now, but I'm not really emotional about it. But we need to talk like that. So that's all. I mean, I'm just trying to agree with these guys.
Speaking of the law, and I'm changing the subject.
Go ahead.
But what's the latest with Trump's immunity case? I didn't even read the latest on that. What has happened? Is there anything that we should know about?
He had appealed the United States Supreme Court, arguing that presidents, as he said, must have immunity. That's been, Mark, Nico, you guys know this better than I. That's been kind of the precedent since Nixon versus Fitzgerald in civil matters. Yeah. But many believe that Trump's sort of stretching a little bit here because he's saying, hey, they're immune from everything, even perhaps criminal matters. And so that's the issue before the court. Does that immunity extend to literally anything? So the court accepted the case and said that they would be hearing oral arguments starting the week of April 22nd. And that's what's at issue. Is a president, in fact, immune across the board?
But a crime has to be committed for that to even be a question. I mean, there wasn't an insurrection.
Yeah.
I mean, we're glancing over the fundamental, like we can't even acknowledge it wasn't an insurrection. I mean, the definition at the time of the founders was not an insurrection. What you can see on video was not an insurrection. If that was an insurrection, if they want to use the loose definition that insurrection is armed violence against the government, then Joe Biden should be taking up all the ballots for supporting BLM riots because that was an insurrection. That was violence against the government. That's not insurrection. That's not what they were thinking of.
Well, let me follow up on that, because there are now two cases before the court, both
the Colorado case.
Yeah, both affecting Trump. What you're talking about is that more the issue on the first case that entails a Colorado decision, which is really whether Trump is in fact disqualified on the basis of the 14th Amendment, because he may have committed, or in their view, that he did in fact commit an insurrection or was guilty of an insurrection. But on the second issue of immunity, that's less about the insurrection. The point is these two dovetail into each other, don't they? Yeah, one will affect the other. If they rule on the first one that says that in fact Trump is qualified to run, and I'm still not sure it's going to be 9-0. It should be 9-0, but I think it's probably going to be more like 8-1. If I had to say it, I think Sotomayor is probably going to.
Well, she's not she's not a jurist. I mean, she's an advocate. but there are two issues here. This was a procedural victory for Trump, Karen, to your question. This was a procedural victory because all this wanted to be rushed. I mean, if you talk about election interference, I mean, just think about this. Everybody had this obsession with this side with prosecuting the Georgia case, and that's just falling apart. I mean, that judge wants 2 weeks to take things under advisement. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to get the balls to do it, I guess. I don't know what he's doing, but I mean, he's the trier of fact. I mean, he knows what he heard. I mean, he knows the possible perjury. He knows the ethical violations. He knows, I mean, the inconsistencies. I mean, the perjury is really a big deal. And so, but he's going to do what he's going to do on that case. So that case is falling apart. That's gone off. The Alan Bragg's case, I mean, that's the weakest of all of them. And you don't want anything to do with it. Cy Vance, the previous DA before Bragg, didn't want it. Bragg didn't want it, and that's why he got pissed. And so they brought up another case, and so that case is not going to go anywhere before this.
But the trial on that's supposed to start March 25th.
In which case?
The Alvin Bragg.
That's the weakest of all of them. I mean, I can't believe that he wants to go that fast with it, but March is fine. But when it comes to this, so if they hear it in April, what people don't realize is Chief Justice Roberts has control of when they conference that, meaning when they actually have that roundtable decision on votes on what it's going to be. He has a decision on when they can release the decision, where it's going to be closer to November. I mean, he doesn't want to. His history, from what I understand, is that he doesn't want to be influencing elections. So I would, that's going to be interesting dynamic. I mean, they can release the decision. They can conference it whenever he says, because he's the Chief Justice, which means come up with the decision. Find out who the majority decision is and who's going to write the opinion and all that stuff. If he's part of the majority, he gets to decide that. And then when they release the actual decision, that's the idea that he's only one vote, but that's the role of the Chief Justice. That's the authority he has. That's going to be interesting. But no matter what, it's not before the March primary. That was the whole issue. So that's still a procedural win for Trump. And then when it actually goes and when they release the decision, I've heard experts say that he's going to lose on the immunity argument, win on the Colorado issue. I think it's going to be a split decision. That's what a lot of people think. I mean, do they really want to say he's immune and tough shit and that's what's going to happen? I don't know. I tend to lean to the experts that say he's going to lose the immunity decision and win the Colorado because the Colorado's just too obvious. But then when that happens and when the trial is set, that's another decision. Does it happen before November? When does the actual decision get released? That's a big deal too. So it was a procedural victory because now it's definitely not happening, obviously, before the March, and he's going to be the candidate.
Yeah. Why is Nikki Haley still running?
Well, if that's all she was doing, that would be bad enough because I don't know why she's in it. But I mean, on this issue, she's actually weighed in an interview this week and said that she is wanting the court to hurry up and rule on Trump's legal cases. And then she says something that I thought was breathtaking, that she doesn't think the president should be immune of anything. Well, that'd be great.
Be careful the world you help create, because someday you have to live in it.
Wow. Mark, how's that even feasible? Well, exactly. I mean,
she's self-serving in every which way. I mean, she embodies the swamp, the anti-Trump, the go along, get along, and, the Bush-Obama fundraising mentality. That's what she embodies.
What's her play?
Her play is for him to get removed and she's the de facto nominee.
that everyone hates.
But then
that everyone
the convention
loathes.
take over? You think the convention's going to put her in there? She's ruined herself.
And then DeSantis, technically, who stepped out, I mean, he could technically come back in.
But that's her goal. I mean, when you lose, when you're a two-time governor and you can't win your own state, when you lose the state decisively that you was in New Hampshire that she spent most of her money on, when you lose
$76 million across 3 states,
none of the above.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I mean, she's a joke.
Yeah.
She is a joke, and the fact that people still support her, politicians that people respect, Joe Strauss is still pushing her. Like, she's a joke, and her supporters are making it, are losing credibility, because we have. I mean, granted, I guess she has a constitutional right to do it, so I guess I shouldn't attack her for that. So I'll step that back in the sense that just because I'm against her doesn't mean that she doesn't have a right to do it. But she has no realistic way to win, and all she's doing is losing credibility.
Well, I mean, I sent you that video on this no labels deal. I mean, because is there more strategic of a plan after all? I mean, and I don't really totally understand this no labels thing, but this no labels candidate, is she gonna, when she's finally not the Republican candidate, does she jump in? How does that affect Bobby Kennedy, Biden, Trump? Who does that hurt? I mean, this could be a very lucrative endeavor for her. Just like they tried. I mean, look, whether you like what's her name, Carrie Lake? I almost said Ricky Lake. Isn't that from the Ricky Lake
talk show? The talk show host.
I had a solo moment. Anybody hear from Ricky Lake? Is that racist? Because I make fun of your accent.
So explain why that's lucrative. Explain why it's lucrative.
Well, because just like they tried to pay her to not run, have someone paid her to run? It's a question. I mean, I want to know if it's a question. Could she be on board? Has she been promised boards? I mean, all I'm saying is this. Trump, whether you like him or not, he's the only former president that, even before this ridiculous unconstitutional ruling by that judge.
Hang on.
Yeah, I just can't even. I have a hard time calling him a judge because that's not a jurist.
Yeah.
But even before that, he's the only former president. Again, you can say, I can't stand Orange Man like Michael Rappaport, but voting for him on the table, I'm still going to call him all kinds of names. But anyone but Biden, so that guy said, I'm voting for this guy. Even if you can't stand the guy, he's the only former president that has lost net worth. I mean, considerably. Yeah. There's no benefit for this guy financially, for sure, to serving as president. There's none benefit. Every other president has become a multi-millionaire, and I'm not criticizing that.
And in the process, gives up his salary every single year that he's in office.
$1.2 million, $400,000 a year.
Really recall anybody else doing that.
Nobody's done that.
I'm wondering about the tactics. You've run a campaign successfully. You're in the middle of a campaign right now, obviously. I want to come back to tactics. I mean, that's the play?
What's the play for her?
It's about the money. She's loathed.
She's not going to win.
She's more ambitious than even Hillary Clinton. I think it's ambition. I think it's vanity.
But they loathe. To do what though? Ambition for what?
Power is sexy.
Money and power. Yeah.
I mean, the president is the most powerful position in the world.
Okay, then she's a sexy bitch because they hate her. She is loathed.
Yeah.
I mean, voters palpably hate this woman. The stats show it's a surge of Democrats' support to be a stone and shoot, to use Godfather language, at Trump. She's basically there to damage him in any way she can. I mean, people can stomach a lot. You mentioned we just don't compete anymore. This isn't a competition. Now you're just being a bitch. Now you're just trying to hurt the man. And then to say, and it's for her to say,
mens rea? What's her mens rea?
That's
right?
what
What's
I'm
her,
after.
what's her criminal
What the hell
intent?
He gets out and she gets I think she's holding out that he's old. He's got a lot of stress. He could, God forbid, have a health issue, or she's push. I mean, she said it. Push it faster. Go to trial.
Yes.
Take away immunity.
Exactly.
She wants to be the de facto because
But Mark, educate me though. Or George, both of you guys educate me. But she doesn't get it de facto. I mean, she still have to go to the convention. You think the Republicans hate her? To George's point, she's getting Democrats to vote for her. I mean, she went from being a viable, not a kind of a viable vice president pick, to she's done in the Republican Party. If that's what she goes, it's not about, if I was doing it for myself, for politics, then I would have dropped out a long time ago. And then she says what it's just for. But come on,
But
Nikki.
she might be done in the Democrat Party too, because they're just using her.
They're using her. They're using her. I mean, she wants to be an anchor somewhere, maybe. I don't know.
And then the funding thing perplexes me too, because her major funder, the Koch brothers, have backed out.
Finally.
Americans for Prosperity. That's a significant hit. And so I'm with you. You got to step back and say you got to follow the money on this. Fair enough. But man, you gotta have I don't know what the word is, but I mean, there's a hubris and an arrogance there, and people are fed up with it. You can just see it. And so I think
I used to like her. I thought she had a lot of talent. Yeah, I liked her. I thought she did a good job when she served under Trump. And I thought she had a lot, and she'd irritate me sometimes. Like, everybody has an off day or whatever. She could have that opinion.
A lot of off days.
Well, now forget about it. But I mean, she was really had a lot of potential, and I think she was a viable VP candidate.
Her messaging has changed, and I'm obsessed on this idea, or I'm focused on it. I mean, her messaging changed because I think as she got more realistic, as her numbers went up, and it became more of a realistic possibility that she could actually, be a viable candidate. She's obsessed on that. I don't think she can come off it. I really think she's the Hillary Clinton. The presidency is mine, and she's just. I think it's ambition.
Yeah.
I mean, she left serving under Trump, allegedly. I haven't researched it, but supposedly, not very wealthy, and she's rich.
Yeah.
She's capitalizing on that ambition.
Truly.
She's. It's all about that self-serving her motivation.
Yeah, you bet.
But how embarrassing! How far do you go before
Karen,
you finally
Vivek
get
brought
out?
that up.
Yes, I know.
And
I
Vivek
know.
said, "Wait a minute, look." Vivek did not debate well, but man, he interviews excellent, and he's a big asset to Trump. He's an important voice out there. He's educated. He's prepared. He understands how to explain things. He's gotten good at doing it quickly.
He does.
I think he's more comfortable in his skin. His voice is his voice, but it's not so chat GPT. Christie labeled him right. I mean, I can't stand Christie, but
Christie really did brand.
Ramaswamy. It's whatever.
Pretty bad.
But he asked a good question when he asked her on stage. You left and you should have seen her face. You left the office at this, and now you're this.
She had nothing to say. Nothing to say.
Just answer for that. I mean, I'm not saying, look, it's just answer for it. You can make money. I'm not opposed to making money. Of course, I want you to do it ethically and I want you to do it legally. But whatever, just say how you made the money, and then people can make their decisions from there. And she went, quiet. So Vivek asked the right question. To Mark's point,
DeSantis pointed out that he didn't trust her from the very beginning. She's sort of an identity politics. I don't use the word I want to use here, but he says we need a lot less identity politics, not more. I want to say this. I want to get this in before we wrap up the show, Mark. But the critical race theory issue is a big issue. You've talked about it a lot. DEI is a big issue, and so it's the adaptation of Marxist theory, basically to Western culture, particularly American politics lately. Instead of looking at it in terms of economic issues or class warfare, it's really about race. Everything's about race. It's sort of in the vein of Obama saying that DNA is or that racism is in the very DNA of America. He said that back in 2015, I believe. So critical race theory evaluates everything through race, and people are basically reduced to the color of their skin. Nico and I did a seminar a few years ago, and people couldn't believe this. Back then, people were like, "What? You guys are exaggerating." Remember, it's back in 21. I can't believe it. It feels like a lifetime ago. And we said, no, seriously. And we went through and we gave actual examples of this was actually policy and it was being practiced. And I have a few here I want to share them with you because I just want to get your input on them before we wrap up, because I think this is real and it's going on in the state of Texas in academic institutions, even here. One, UCLA law professor and CRT guru Cheryl Harris has proposed suspending private property rights, seizing land and wealth, and redistributing them along racial lines. 2, the FBI now holds workshops on intersectionality. The more minority features one possesses, the greater the victimization. That's what intersectionality is. So they hold workshops on that on a regular basis. Department of Homeland Security training sessions tell white employees they commit micro inequities because they have been socialized into oppressor roles. 4, the Treasury Department trains staff members that, quote, virtually all white people contribute to racism, unquote, and that they must convert everyone in the federal government to the ideology of anti-racism. Lastly, as an example, Sandhya National Labs, which designs America's nuclear arsenal, sent white male executives to a 3-day re-educational camp to learn that, quote, white male culture, end of quote, was analogous to the KKK, white supremacists and mass killings. They were then forced to renounce their white man privilege and write letters of apology to fictitious women and people of color. We have about 10 more. This is pervasive through the culture in the American academic.
That's evil. That's evil.
What the hell, man? I mean,
that's evil. I won't say.
You could have pulled that from 1984. I mean,
the book, George Orwell's.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Stalin. It's communism. It's socialism. It is,
and it's here.
Yeah. It's here, and they embraced it. I mean, openly embraced it because we have not a threefold attack: taking God out, destroying the family structure, and then education.
That's right.
And those three things are the downfall because we've allowed it to happen. And
that's why you're for school choice,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm against DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not a campaign slogan. It is this topsy-turvy that the truth is not the truth, and that biology is not biology, and that parents don't have a right to protect their children, and that I'm going to force men and boys to play with and compete with girls and to change with girls, and I'm going to indoctrinate your kid and help them transition and put makeup and all these things. Like, it's insanity.
It's evil. There's nothing biblical about it. We're going to wrap up, but it's evil. It's absolutely evil. It's antithetical to a biblical worldview. It's insanity. I mean, where you're putting tampons in trans boys, whatever the fuck that means, restrooms and all this other stuff. I mean, it's insane. Women can't breastfeed anymore. They have to chest feed. You can't call a mommy a mommy. You have to call her a birthing person. We've lost our minds. And that's why, whether you're Democrat or Republican, Democrats never used to support this shit. This is why the Democrats, and someone like Bobby Kennedy is forced out of the party. How many other Democrats have left the party, including, I never identify myself as a political party. I'm a Christian, I'm an American, I'm a daddy, I'm a husband. Those are my identity. But I ran under that platform because back then, this was insane. We didn't have border issues. Like I said, Bill Clinton in 95 and things like this. Democrats didn't think like this. This is a Marxist ideology.
It is.
This is communism that has found a home in Democrat politics. You think Schumer believes this shit? 15 years ago, he wasn't advocating this stuff. What happened, Schumer? In your 60s, you changed your mind. You didn't change your mind, asshole, in your 60s. You're a survivalist, and you're an opportunist, and you're a snake. Pelosi? If you listen to Harry Reid in his speeches.
Biden was against it 20 years ago.
Biden in 2008 laughed at same-sex marriage. Hillary Clinton on the House of the Senate floor in New York is defending the Marriage Act of husband and wife. She says, anybody should know is me, because if her marriage was so challenged when Bill is leaving presents on dresses. This is what happened. So these are not Democrat principles. These are communist ideas that have found a home in the Democrat Party, and because of a lack of courage and saying, well, we can't be a Republican, they're saying, shit, we better go along to get along. Obama didn't have, if you listen to Obama in 2008, he'd be a Republican today.
Right.
They would cancel him. They would cancel Biden in 2008. They'd cancel Feinstein, Schumer, Pelosi, Harry Reid. Name them all the old schoolers.
Obama even deport more illegals than Trump did?
Birthright citizenship. None of the Democrats were for that. Yeah. It's all on video is my point. So what happened? What happened is this communistic mindset. It's just a seed. It's scripture in Ephesians 4:20. Don't even give the enemy a foothold. They got a foothold in with the Democrat Party because they knew it wasn't going to be even tolerated on the Republican side. And so they said, shit, we need a platform. There, it's here. And then they started winning. Then it was just, they're just the fringe. They're the fringe. And they got louder. And then loud name calling started working. And then people was like, I don't want to be called a name. And that was too loud. And so then they took more hold and took hold and took hold. And they got louder and they got bolder. And then people was like, yeah, they're yelling even louder. And then they took hold. And then you combine that with courage and then ignorance. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance plus an agenda is catastrophic, and that's what we're seeing. And then you throw in cowardice in there, you sprinkle in cowardice, and you have this. So these are not Democrat principles initially. This Democrat Party is the platform that allowed communism to edge its way in. Because if you talk to Democrats, even the hardcore Democrats like Mark is talking about out there, and you say, can we get away from the tribal label? And can we just talk about ideas? And then they get a chance instead of a soundbite to talk about ideas. They're like, I don't agree with this stuff. I go, I know, but why are you still voting for it? I really don't know. I've always voted Democrat. Can we have a conversation? That conversation, to Mark's point, it's a seed. Yeah. That they got there by a seed. The communists took over the Democrat Party by a seed. Like everybody knows, like Nelson Wolff, he didn't think all the stuff he supports. Ron Nuremberg didn't support all this crap years ago.
Know.
Listen to his talks when he was on city council. Justin Rodriguez, any of them that I know, I mean, and that I've known them for years, and you listen to the conversation, what they voted for, and what they don't think like this. I promise you that. This is not, I mean, you talk to the Mexicano household or to the black household, they have traditional values. Don't call them conservative. There's traditional common sense values about family and about the way we should do things, about culture in the society. But when you get outside the emotion and you start talking, that's why we need to talk about ideas.
It's cultic. It truly is cultic. They found a way to turn it into a religious movement, Mark. And it's stunning to me. So Nico's right. When they didn't have the numbers, they engaged in persuasion. When the numbers grew, now it's power. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Thaddeus Williams. He's a professor at Biola University, one of my alma maters. And he wrote something really interesting. He said, the totalizing view of wokeism, which is happy speak for DEI, the totalizing view of wokeism causes the mind not just to see what is not there, but miss much of what is there. It dupes people into seeing oppression where it isn't and keeps them from seeing oppression where it is.
So good. That's good.
And I think that's right. And, and it's emotional and it's religious and it's euphoric.
Text that to me later.
And it I mean, it's hurting people.
So good.
And so I like what you're saying, because in terms of how they live lives maybe every day, they're a lot more conservative than they realize. But then they get into political circles. They get into silos.
That's good, George.
And then they lose their ability to think rationally.
Well,
got to have patient people who know the issues and who are tough. Like I said before, that pain in the ass trait you got sometimes, that comes in handy, baby. Good. That really, really does. You got to have that strength. You got to have that stubbornness. And I really, really, really hope people will see the light and pull the leg. Mark LaHood on March 5th.
Right?
Early voting started. It's been going for a while, right?
No, it finished yesterday.
Yesterday was the last day, but how long did early voting last? Dare I ask?
12 days from February the 20th until March the 1st.
All right.
And then election day is March the 5th, Tuesday from 7 to 7.
Okay.
7 to 7. Do you have to vote in your area, or can you vote anywhere?
I think you have to vote in your area, right?
No,
they talked about changing that.
Yeah, I don't find out.
I got to confirm that.
Yeah, but
early voting, you can vote anywhere for sure.
Yeah.
But I think they were talking about changing that. I'm embarrassed to say, but I still.
No, I don't even know. I mean, somebody will comment on in the things. We'll find out and we'll post it. Look, I hope people will consider. Look, this is it. But Isaiah 1 says that let's sit down and reason together. I mean, that's the mindset of a biblically minded person, which is Mark. I mean, so the courage and the guts to do things and the fight and the battle scars. I mean, you just look in his face and he's resolved. I mean, that's why he looks older than me. I mean, so he's got this resolve.
That's why he's your dad.
Yeah, that's right. He's my pop. You got this resolve. You got this resolve, right? So you got this resolve. But yet still, you need someone that has all that courage and resolve to have that Isaiah 1 mindset that let's sit down and reason together. And that's what Mark brings to the table. So if you haven't voted already, hope you'll consider voting for my brother if you live in the District 121. If you know someone that lives in District 121, spread the message, get people to vote 7 to 7 on Tuesday. It matters. And all these other people, it matters for our country. Look, the good thing for me is I can go on vacation now because the real LaHood probably stole my job. He can come in. He can come in and sub for me. People probably like him on the show more than me now, which is fine.
You know, when did you become faux LaHood?
I don't know, but I mean it's good. Mark, thanks for coming out here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You made time to come out here.
I love you.
I know you. Love you too. I know you've been out here. I'm proud of you. We're very proud of you. Regardless of what the result is God's.
Absolutely.
You handled the process well.
Thank you.
You honored God. You honored your wife and your children. You honored Pop and Mom. and then let the Lord decide what happens on Tuesday. And it is what it is. It's not your identity. You're comfortable in your skin. So you'll be blessed. We'll be blessed if we have him in office. So spread the word. God bless you guys. We went long today, but it was purpose because we had the real LaHood on. God bless you guys. Have a great weekend. Vote on Tuesday.